Hello everyone, welcome to this video, how to use Power Query. There are a few topics. How to use append, merge, how to add columns, delete columns, how to use filter, how to add calculations, and use group by to simplify data. I've made a few videos to introduce Power Query, one topic at a time. In this video, we will do a quick summary by covering all the topics. As soon as we start to use Power Query, there will be topics popping up, like how to optimize data size and minimize the load time. I will show you the practical tips to achieve that. All right, let's dive in to learn some practical tips. I will open one Excel. Let's load some data. From data, get data. From file, from Excel workbook. I will load a few tables. The first one is the main data table. The second 1, 2, 3 are mapping tables. Transform data. We use transform data to help us take a first look of the dataset and do some transformation. For instance, we could remove unnecessary rows. In this way, I removed the blank and empty and also a few rows that I do not need. Continue from here. The first column I don't need also, so select the column. Click remove columns. Remove columns. So next, what we're going to do is, in these dimensions, there are year and there are category. How it works is, for each year, there are different categories, including the actual, budget, and actual R stands for the actual value reinstated with the latest exchange rate. In this example, I only need the combination for the prior year with the value reinstated with the latest exchange rate and current year actuals. How do we do that? Let me show you two ways. The first one is I first created one additional column. Add columns. Column from examples, from selections. This allows us to choose the columns that we will use as a reference to create a new column. I choose year and I choose category. Instead of writing the formulas, column from examples allow us to just give a few examples. Then the Power Query would be smart enough to write this formula for us. In this case, I would like to combine year and category together. After I input the first row, click Enter. The Power Query would give suggestions how to create this new column. Let's go through. It seems that the Power Query is giving the correct example. Click OK. In this way, we added a new column by example. After this, click Open the new columns. Load more to show the full list. We could easily take away the year and category combination that I do not need. In this case, I only need each year the actuals reinstated by the latest exchange rate. So I remove the other year and category combination. All right. So now we removed the unnecessary category and year combination. Then we can delete this added column. Select the column. Similarly, we can use home, remove columns, or we can just right-click the selected column and click remove. Like all the Microsoft applications, there will be at least 3 ways of doing the same thing. This is the second. And this is the first solution to remove certain rows. Let me show you another way. Now I delete the query steps. That will help us to return to the situation before we created this additional column. This time I will use the support from another table. So sometimes when the data set is very large and what we need to filter or transform is more complex, we could utilize this table. So let's examine this table first. In this table, there are 2 columns. The first column is the year and category combination. The second column is a flag saying, do we want to keep the data or not? Let's go back to the main data table. So the key field between these 2 tables is year and category combination, because in this additional mapping, we have the field year and category. Let's add the column. Let's repeat from selections, year and category. Input manually to give example. Year, category, enter. Okay. A new column is created. Next, go to home, merge query. With merge query, you can either create a completely new table or just create merge query in the existing table. This time we will create within this table. Choose the table, year mapping, and choose the primary key to link these 2 tables. Good. At the bottom, it shows there are 100% match. Click OK. Now select the table. There could be so many columns in the table. Depends on the data. Only choose what we need. In this case, it is the flag, yes or no. Now we see the flag include both yes and no. Click open and check no. So in this way, as a second alternative solution, we removed the unnecessary year and the category combinations. So both ways are good. It depends on the data set you have and complexity. For the easy cases, you can use the first option. And for more complex cases, you can use the second option. We just practiced together how to remove unnecessary rows, how to delete columns, how to merge a table. Next, let's practice how to do the calculations. Let's examine this table once more from the account field. There are 2 account codes. If I want to create a calculate field for one account code only, let's say first this R50. We will use add column, conditional column this time. So let's call it R50. If account equals R50, calculate, select column, select values, and else 0. So basically it says calculate based on the value field if the account equals R50. Otherwise, do not calculate. Click OK. And change the data field to decimal numbers. All right, in this way, we have now one extra calculated column. We just went through two types of add columns. The first one, add column from selection by using example. The second one, conditional column. And in this conditional column, let's see, add conditional column. You see this, how the query is written. For instance, early we choose else is 0. You can also say else, then what else? Not applicable. Like a text field. Let's try how it works. Because we're using the text field, so it cannot be changed to number. But if we examine, if the account does not equal to R50, it will return not applicable. Let's go back and change it manually to 0. All right. This is one data field. Now I will remove the account field. Remove it. Okay, then category we do not need. Let's continue to remove unnecessary columns. It's good to keep the table as clean as possible to save more space. We just went through how to delete unnecessary rows, how to delete columns, how to create calculated columns by using conditional column, how to modify the conditional columns, how to add additional column by column from example from selections. Next, let's practice another calculation. This time, what I want to do is by utilizing the dimension called BU, which is standing for business units. There are altogether 3 business units here: equipment, service, and ADM. ADM stands for admin. What I would like to do is to allocate the cost under admin back to business units and areas. Here is called frontline. So it's the multi-dimensional allocation. How do we do that? Step 1, try to add multiple rows by splitting admin. Let's first duplicate the table and remove the BU equipment and service. We will only keep admin. So next, once we only have admin, add column. This time we will use custom column. We need to split the admin into the business units, equipment, service, and spares. That's the available 3 business units. Let's click OK. In this additional column, we created 3 business units. Then let's select this column and split columns. Split columns by delimiter, comma, because we already used comma to separate these 3 business units. Advanced options, split the columns into rows. Okay, now we're getting additional rows by splitting the field we created. And in the value, query just duplicates the value. Next, we will need to duplicate the area also. GCN, Europe, Americas, Asian Pacific, and the Middle East. That's the 4 areas. What we want to do is we want to redistribute the cost under admin back into the business units and back into the areas, regardless from which area it was originally booked. With this in mind, let's create another column, custom column 1. I input manually for areas, Europe and Americas. Good. Again, let's split columns. Okay, now this query is split the data furthermore into 4 rows, and each row has the same value. I would call this new business units, and this I would call new area. But since we just multiply the value, how do we split the value into this new BU and new area? In this case, I have this additional supporting table for each fiscal year to reallocate the cost simultaneously into business units and into areas. For each fiscal year, the percentage is summing up to 100. That will help us to reallocate the duplicate values simultaneously to 2 dimensions with the result equal to the original value. Let's do that. I will continue to simplify this table, remove value, because what we have value is here in this R50, the new column. So now I need to add column from selections. In this case, selections would be new business units, new area. Let's repeat type again, equipment. Let's click enter. So let's check if the query created the correct combinations for us. Yes, it is. Good, click OK. So now this merged column will be used as a primary field. In this supporting table, we have the primary field, which is a combination of year, business units, and areas. So it seems that I created the supporting table not exactly right. So let's redo it. Remove, add column from selections. We need to choose 3 columns, year, new BU, and new area. Let's check. The first example, year is 2019. And the business units called, let's see. All right. So now it's giving the correct. Let's go back to this supporting table, help us to split the value. Let's take examination again. Now the only hindrance is in the data table is the full name of each business units. But in this additional table is the abbreviation. So this primary key won't be working exactly. Let's solve that. So again, there are different ways of doing that. Let's try the first one. I will choose transform, replace values. Because there are only 3 business units, we can just create the query manually to replace equipment by NEB. Okay. And continue, replace value, replace the service by VA. Okay. And replace the spares by VB. Okay, now let's check. So with the help of replace values, we're getting now the identical field between the main data table and the additional mapping table. Again, when facing more complex data sets and rules, we will be utilizing additional mapping table to help us with that. In this case, the data set is small, and what we need to change is quite simple, so we can just do it manually by using these replace values. Let's again merge query. Choose the table. HC. Now choose the primary field. We're getting 100% match. Click OK. Again, open the table. Choose what we will need, the percentage only. Great. We can remove the merge field already. And let's do the calculation. Add columns. Let's practice custom columns. In this case, we will use the values from R50 multiply by the percentages. No syntax error has been detected. Click OK. And change the value into decimal number. So now we're getting the calculated columns. In this one, all the costs under admin are reallocated back to areas and the business units, two-dimensional, by utilizing the additional table allocation percentages. The end result would be the same of the total value under admin, but reallocated to the business units and the areas. With this, we can remove already the original field, row 50, and rename this back to R50. The additional percentage field we do not need anymore, remove. And we also don't need the original areas and admin. Let's remove it. And we change this back to BU, and let's call it area. So now in this table is the cost under admin reallocated. And we will need to take the original value, the cost that is already in the business units. So let's say the admin we allocated already in the second table. So I choose all this equipment service. Next, again, I do not need other costs. I only need the costs from 4 areas: Americas, Asian Pacific, Europe, and Great China. Good. So now we have 2 tables. The first table includes all the costs already reported in area and the business units. The second table reallocate the costs reported under areas and admin. Additionally, reallocated the costs under area and admin back to the business units and areas. Next, we need to combine these two together. How do we do that? We will use the append query. Choose one table, go to home, choose append. Again, we can either append query as new, or we can append query to the existing. Let's try both. Append query as new, choose 2 tables. Okay. So in this case, it gave us a new query. You can rename it. For instance, this would be called append table, right? And if we don't need this table, we can click and delete. The second option is choose the first table and append query. Then choose the second one, click OK. So in this scenario, it's just added the second table to the existing first table. Again, you can do either ways, depends on your target. In general, I would do it. Do not create a new table, because with each creating new current new table, we multiply the data. In case you are dealing with a huge amount of data, it's better to keep the current table as smaller as possible. But if you are working with a reasonable amount of data and would like to keep very clear structure, you could just create a new query to keep it transparent. I noticed I made one mistake. The mistake I made is while reallocating the cost, I modified the name of one column. Originally it's called front line, but now I call it area. So when combining the 2 tables by using append, basically this query just adding the 2 tables together to increase the number of rows, but it combining the columns with the same column name. For instance, if I want to combine the area with this column, which is also the area, but the name of the column must be the same. So I will remove append query. Now let's rename it to the area in this way. It will append the table correctly. We have area, we have year, we have BU, this value we do not need. So now in the first table, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 columns. And in the second table, there are 4 columns with the same column header name. Let's repeat steps. Append query. Append query. Choose the second table, click OK. Good. So now these two tables are added together as additional number of rows. The column remains the same. One more thing we can do is to remove 0 from the dataset. Okay, good. So now group by. Group by. We don't need area anymore, so click advanced. Year, add group business units. New column name code. I would call it value. Sum the column are 50. Okay, so good. Now we can see, so it's just to calculate the values for each year and within each year for each business units. If we want to know just total year value, let's try one more group by advanced year. We do not need BU anymore. Then new column code, I can call it value still. Sum. Of course, if we need average or count rows, min, max, it works the same. So now value, okay. So again, that's the second group by. Good. Now in this short video, we went through together how to create new columns by 3 ways. The first one, from selections. Second one, conditional columns. The third one, custom columns. We also talked about how to use group by, how to split the columns into either columns or rows. And the real case example we used is to allocate costs, two-dimensional, to business units and to areas. In addition to that, we practiced together how to remove columns, how to filter the dataset by removing unnecessary rows. Good. Then we covered all those basic functions in Power Query that will help us to transform the data and prepare it for the Power Pivot.
Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I hope you find the information useful. I'm Jennifer, analytic expert who love BI tools.